Hello and welcome to the big picture. India and the United States have reached an agreement on how India will use its food stocks until a permanent settlement is arrived. This agreement is expected to pave way for the signing of the Trade Facilitation Agreement at the WTO, which had got stuck in July last following India's objections. How did this agreement come about and what will be the impact of it on India's stockholding and its food security program? Will the India-US agreement be acceptable to other countries in the WTO? What will be the benefit to India in particular and the world at large if the TFA is adopted? We will discuss all this today with Ajay Shankar, Member Secretary, National Manufacturing Competitiveness Council, Dipa Sinha, Member Right to Vote Campaign, and Chetan Chauhan, Associate Editor, Hindustan Times. Welcome to all of you. Mr. Ajay Shankar, do you know why? How did the US come about to agreeing to this?
I think the US saw the merit of our stand, that it would be very difficult for any government in India to risk the food security commitment towards its people. I think President Obama saw the merit of our position, and I think.
But they were the ones who were very strongly, criticizing India's stand in July.
I think, as I said, President Obama probably saw the merit of our position and felt that our relationship was far too important to jeopardize on what is really a core necessity for India.
Deepa, would you also see it that way?
Well, I think it's also US's desperation to get the trade facilitation agreement signed, and that fear that I think we effectively gave a message that India would not come on board if this issue is not resolved to some satisfactory level, although I don't think it's fully resolved yet. But so I think somewhere they even got the message that they have to move a step forward if the TFA has to go ahead, and that's something they really wanted, and that's what worked in our favor finally.
Chetan?
I think there may be some sort of a quid pro quo because
hidden quid pro quo?
Because outside the WTO in the bilaterals, India may provide some sort of more access to US farm sector, which has been whose import to India has been increasing in the past few years. So I think it is not a deal that Obama has agreed just because they didn't want to isolate India or there was too much of pressure. There would be some sort of quid pro quo which will emerge in the next few months maybe.
Do you agree with that, Deepa?
Yeah, it's just that we don't know what the quid pro quo is. And with these bilateral trade agreements, we never know till it really comes on our heads. So there would be something. I don't think it's out of goodwill and understanding why India requires public stockholding that this has happened. There is an inside story. One clear thing is that they want the TFA to happen. What else, we don't know.
Mr. Shankar, now that this agreement has happened bilaterally between India and the US, why should every other country in the world, the 160 countries which are there in the other 158 countries, should agree with this?
I think everybody wanted the trade facilitation agreement, and everybody was quite concerned that it was being delayed. So the support for signing the trade facilitation agreement is overwhelming. Now, the United States was in the lead in terms of the food issue in the WTO. And if they have come to an agreement with India and expressed an understanding of our position, I don't see any reason why it shouldn't go through in the WTO. Because in terms of the interests in agriculture and agricultural exports or subsidies, the US has greater commercial interest on these areas than Europe has.
No, but why were they so opposed to it so far? And what kind of an agreement? See, now, but this is not, this agreement doesn't mean that everything is settled, isn't it? That India was given time till 2017 to work out some kind of a rationalization of the food subsidies program here. Now this agreement is about giving India more time, even if after 2017 we're not able to work out, they will not challenge it, they will not challenge our position. Is that the agreement? And how will this help us? Because the problem will still remain.
No, our apprehension was that once the trade facilitation agreement was signed, we would not have the leverage necessary to get a reasonable solution on the agriculture side.
Right.
So I think it was a good thing that we were able to insist that we should have a mutually satisfactory agreement on agriculture, and that it is not that in 4 years, if there is no agreement, then the US or the West has the right to impose sanctions. So I think it's a fair balance that we will try and have a mutually satisfactory agreement as soon as feasible.
Okay, we are now...
And there is no threat of sanctions.
There is no
after
threat
4
of
years.
sanctions even after 2017. We are now joined in by Devinder Sharma, a food economist and an analyst on the phone line from Chhattisgarh. Devinder, you can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Devinder, how do you look at this agreement between India and the US, and what kind of a impact it will have? Do you think that this will lead to the TFA being signed? Other countries will also accept this?
Well, I think this is an important development. There is no denying about it. But I would have expected a little more clarity on this before we understand whether it's going to be that effective or helpful as we are anticipating. Why I'm saying this is because, if you remember in Maharashtra, when we had the Shiv Sena and the BJP ruling, for fighting the elections together, I remember Shiv Sena leader was so happy, so confident that he will become the deputy chief minister because he had the bargaining power. But the moment NCP said we support the Congress, sorry, the BJP, this Uddhav Thakkare lost, and they are now sitting in the opposition. Now the point I'm trying to make is once the TFA is signed, India would also lose that bargaining power. So once the bargaining power is gone, today they are all looking at us. But I think after bargaining power is gone from our hands, I think the agreement will not be that conducive as we are anticipating. That's what I fear. The sword of Damocles will keep on hanging on you. And so therefore, I thought this should have been taken up just now rather than, postponing the problem. I think what we have done is postponed our problem or our concern to a longer period now.
Devinder, this is supposed to be a sovereign agreement between two nations that they will not impose sanctions even if by 2017 we are not able to work out some kind of a rational food subsidy program here. You think that is your fear that they may break this agreement which is there, and you think that again the threat of sanctions will be upon us?
No, you didn't get my point. All I'm saying is that earlier also we had got a 4-year period, peace clause, and now we have got an indefinite peace clause. That's
right.
What we anticipate. Now, the point is the indefinite peace clause or 4-year peace clause still means that the final decision will still not be in our hand. It will be taken by the collective, the multilateral organization. So it's not, America is not only there. But today we have a strong,
leverage
position, leverage. That time we will not have. So if the countries are opposing us, what will India do? And even now we are saying we are isolated and so on. Imagine what will happen at that time.
But what do you...
I think if the peace clause is permanent, I don't think we should have anxiety that we will not be able to negotiate a mutually satisfactory agreement.
Well, the question is, if it was permanent, then they should have got this written off just now. The government of India should have worked hard to see that this is written off completely. Why keep it hanging still? So that's the point I'm trying to make,
So you think that the government of India has left some loopholes open which can create problems for us? Is that your apprehension?
I thought Modi was very right and he took a very tough stand, but I think his negotiators have let him down. That's what I feel. And I think they will of course convince him.
I don't think that is the case, because a permanent peace clause is the maximum you can want, and you have the full freedom to negotiate a mutually satisfactory agreement.
No, I don't agree with that. Permanent peace clause is permanent peace clause. Does not mean that the final decision has been taken. So how do you say that, it will give us a position like that? So I think this is all, what should I say? We have actually lost that opportunity when we could have negotiated much harder and got it to our benefit. Now, after even 10 years, let's say the decision is taken, we are not going to be on that front. Tough front.
Okay, Devinder, please stay back. I'll come back to you. Yeah. Deepa, the apprehensions of Devinder is very serious, actually.
Devinder Sharma, actually, because this is the time where we had this peg of the.
No, but
TFA.
how long do you get isolated? How long do you stand up against 159 countries?
The whole process. The WTO is a place where all countries come together. Every country has one vote. We have undermined that process and made this side deal with the US. It's not as if this public stockholding the limit affects only India. There are many other countries also which are affected by it. India has been able to hold on to its stand for longer. And once this TFA is signed, I think getting to the permanent solution now will be very difficult because there is nothing that we have to bargain with. This is what the US and the EU wanted out of the WTO, the TFA, and this is the time when they would have been willing to give in some way. But the permanent solution would mean reopening the agreement on agriculture and actually coming up with a solution where the right prices are used, or even thinking about putting this in the green box. And that I don't think will now happen, because what is it that we'll bargain against?
What is it, Mr. Shankar? What is it that we will?
I think this is not a fair position, because the fact is that with the permanent peace clause, there is nothing adverse by way of consequences that can confront us till such time as we have an agreement which is to our satisfaction as well as the satisfaction of the rest of the world. So the onus is on both sides to have a fair settlement. So I do not see why we should have any apprehension regarding the peace clause.
Which is also not fully clear, the peace clause comes with a few conditionalities as well. There are certain onerous data requirements on us during the peace clause that we have to submit every year. We have to show that this is being used to give subsidy only to the poor, which opens up many issues on who is the poor, how are they identified. It also says that it should not be trade distorting. It's not clearly defined what trade distorting is. So there are these loopholes which can be used at any time if somebody wants to use it.
But I would say that if we have been able to withstand the pressure on signing the TFA and get the peace clause, I think we should have confidence in ourselves that we'll handle the subsequent negotiations well enough.
Big achievement for India that they have been able to get this peace clause retained. It is an achievement for India because the last government agreed for it.
Yes.
And in
Bali.
Bali. And after that, the Modi government said, no, we don't agree to it. So the government has got something, but the negotiators now will have to bargain for something else. The 1986 provision that you have to go by food stocking subsidy for 1986 is totally irrational. If the negotiators are not able to negotiate on that and get an agreement on that, I think that the negotiator will fail.
So, Devinder, actually now the onus lies on Indian negotiators to work out all this, what Chetan was talking about, the 1986 clause, 86, 88 clause, and then, coming to the present and what kind of prices and things like that. So, as Mr. Ajay Shankar says, should we not have faith in our own negotiators who have so far held and done a pretty good job?
So, it's not that easy that you sit in a studio and think that your negotiators will be able to do a job. You are negotiating at a multilateral level where 150 countries are there. Every country has its own interests. Even Pakistan has been giving us problems ever since we had this issue at Bali, the security clause. And they have done it very successfully, I would say. Now, the point here is that, once we have lost that leverage, the bargaining power, I don't think we can ever be that strong that we were today. I think government has given up or given in so quickly just because of domestic pressure. There are some economists in this country who are actually taking the country for a ride for saying that, we must hurry up, we are isolated and so on. Some newspapers also. So I think that has built up on the government, and I think they have given in. And now I can tell you, at one stage or the other, India will be losing whenever we sign this agreement, or when we have to finalize what is being, our concern and to our interests.
I think it's a misreading of the situation, because the U-turn has actually been from the US side.
US side.
Yes, and you have to see the pre-July and the post-July situation.
The public feeling is that US has climbed down. We have not climbed down. US has climbed down, but there is also apprehension that, as Dipa was pointing out, at future point of time during the actual negotiations, they may add some clauses that there may be some hidden quid pro quo which has been worked out.
I don't see why we should have apprehensions about hidden quid pro quos, because in this age of transparency, if there was anything, it would have been out in the open. And anyway, it will
have to come out in the open at some point of time.
What I'm saying is that the trade facilitation agreement itself is such a major public good for the entire world that I think it made good sense for the US not to delay that
agreement. It's going to add some $1 trillion
so
to the economy.
So it made good sense for the US and the West to see the merit in our concerns for preserving autonomy as far as food security is concerned. So you look at the balance of public interest at a global level, I think it was sensible of the US and the Western powers to see the need for our autonomy in terms of food security
No,
and move ahead with trade facilitation and all the benefits that would flow to the global economy from that.
No, is it in India's interest now that this has been worked out? There is a permanent peace clause now worked. India can just postpone a decision on this, and anyway there is no the sanction fear
There's
of
no
sanction
threat of
there. So is it that we can just postpone this thing further? Why is there so much apprehension then? Because earlier the thing was there was no permanent peace
if
clause.
it was so
The
easy,
earlier,
if it
I
was so
remember in
easy
July
and
when we were
acceptable, then
discussing-
why didn't we get to a permanent solution?
No,
See,
no.
obviously
In July,
there are interests.
when July when we were discussing this issue, we were told that only we have time only till 3 years or 4 years, 2017. After that there will be sanctions. So we have to work it out. The government has worked it out.
See, I think 2 points I want to make. One is I also think it is a step forward. And the mistake we made was in Bali where we agreed to the 4 years. So that had to be undone and it was a different government. So it took a tough stand. But we only wish it took a tougher stand. Because this is not the
what
final...
tougher stand? When you say tougher stand, what
to
is
ask
it?
for a permanent solution now. There was a G33 proposal at the time of Bali which said
Are we
permanent
prepared? Are we
solution to be.
prepared for a permanent solution at this point of time?
Of course, there are clear proposals on what a permanent solution should look like. The G33 was backing the permanent solution before Bali. We have to open those discussions again, and we could have used this opportunity to try and get to that instead of just postponing the whole thing to a point of time where we might not have any bargaining
Any leverage?
Yeah.
Devinder, is that your point too?
That's what I said in the very beginning. I think we have lost an opportunity, that's what I'm saying. And this was a classical way of time for us to actually get what we wanted. And now, because of the pressure from people who have been saying that, TFA is wonderful, and so, this is a great step forward for India. It's not a great step for India. It's a great step for America. That's why they knew where their interests lie. Or for the rich countries. They want us to open up for them. If you look at TFA, Mr. Pascal Lamy, the former DG, had already said on record that TFA actually means developing countries will reduce practically for all means 10% further duties in import tariffs. So that's what they wanted. They got it. Now they have kept our case hanging, and we are very excited. The problem with Indians is they go on patting our back without even getting something out of it. That's the biggest tragedy of this country, and we have so many experts who will go on singing songs for the sake of it. But I think let's understand that this was an opportunity lost, as the lady said very rightly, that they could have got it now. This was the right opportunity for us to get a permanent solution, and it could have been, maybe it would have been just the peace clause for all times to come without any questioning or without any need to go in for agreement on agriculture being relooked. So
Okay.
that was something we have lost, and
Okay.
now we will always fear that sword coming to us at one stage or the other.
Okay. Chetan?
I'd like to, I think, add here
Yes.
that given the nature of India's economic relationships with the rest of the world, and given our future, I think this apprehension that we will not be able to get a fair settlement in the future is misplaced.
No, in
Okay.
the multilateral
No,
forum,
Chetan, no,
a
Chetan.
settlement comes, it may be fair or not fair, but if you see any negotiation, going back on the negotiation is a big step which India took. And now it has reached some sort of an agreement. It is a one step forward India has taken.
No, that is the question, Chetan, I want to ask. That, Indian government went back on its predecessor government's
The commitment. It was commitment of the government of India. It was not of a particular party.
Absolutely, but the new government had showed the courage to do that. But now, were they prepared for a permanent solution, as Deepa and Devinder is saying? That was our government thinking on lines of the permanent solution at all?
No, I think that they were not thinking of the permanent solution. They were thinking that how to
overcome
the 2017 deadline,
right,
and to get some more time for negotiation purpose, which the government have achieved by this agreement with US. But the bigger challenge, as I said earlier, would be in the negotiating table. And second is the implication of TFA for Indian farm sector. The money may come for the cold storages, the money may come for something else, but whether the Indian farmer will benefit or not is the big question. The India subsidy regime is totally different from the US subsidy regime, where the farmers get incentive to innovate, to do something new, whereas Indian subsidy regime is an incentive on procurement, where the farmer doesn't get an incentive to innovate. So to compete with the global market, India will have to come with a new farm policy if they have to compete in the new regime, in the new TFA regime.
Deepa?
No, but the thing with the TFA is that not just the farm sector, we have to look at who the TFA benefits also. That is the other side to this. There was no urgency for India for the TFA to be signed, because obviously the benefits of the TFA is much more to the US and the EU,
To the developed
to the more
countries.
export-ready countries and sectors. Then countries like India is still okay somewhere in the middle, but the poorer countries in Africa or Southeast Asia, which would be our natural allies, would lose more from the TFA probably than gaining from it. I just want to add that this $1 trillion figure is completely baseless. It doesn't come out of any
it's been touted so often
rigorous.
that
It's just
everybody
touted,
seems to
but if you
believe
look
it.
at the source of it, there is no rigorous analysis behind where this is coming
And
from.
if you see, the India's agriculture exports to US is 3.5 billion. But India's import from US from farm sector is about 15 billion. And it has grown in the past few years. So India's export to US has not grown, whereas their farm
No,
product coming to India has
Shankar,
grown so much.
Mr. Shankar, this is the question. This is the question which I want to ask. Now, okay, we have earned this. We have been able to negotiate this kind of a agreement and allow us this time and all that. But the question is, once we sign the TFA, what are the major benefits India will have?
No, the fact is that trade facilitation...
Not just in the farm sector, but...
the trade facilitation agreement is good for India, and for India, there has never been any doubt on the issue of the advantages from the trade facilitation agreement.
Will the advantages overweigh the disadvantages?
No,
which
the
these
trade
people
facilitation agreement has only positives. We use the leverage of the trade facilitation agreement to get a permanent peace clause, which was not forthcoming. So, as far as the benefits from the trade facilitation agreement to the Indian economy is concerned, there has never been any doubts about it. The fact of the matter is that we need to export more. We have gained from globalization. We need to gain more so that the poor people of India can get productive jobs. And
but
that
how is TFA
bigger
going to increase our
perspective.
exports?
So
They're
how
only
is it
going to
going to
facilitate imports by people who are ready to import, no?
Mr. Shankar.
No, given where we are in terms of our wage levels, given where we are in terms of the potential we have, given the Make in India campaign, we will and should have a greater role in the global economy. Our share in global trade should rise to about...
Make in India campaign, Make in India slogan. Is it going to get benefited once we sign the TFA?
The trade facilitation agreement is good for the entire global economy. If you look at the G20 declaration again...
No, but what about this apprehension? There is more, this will be more... the developed economies will benefit more than the developing economies.
If you look at the last 20 years, the biggest beneficiary from globalization and trade has been China, which is a low-income country. We have also benefited. We can benefit much more, and we should benefit much more.
So, Devinder, this is the question. This is the comparison which is always made, that there is a larger good to this, apart from the fact that this agreement is also to certain extent, as far as food security is concerned, has been protected, and there is a larger benefit waiting for us out there. Why should we delay the process?
This is nothing surprising, because if you have looked at since the days of WTO initial, of the GATT and WTO coming into force, the same argument has been floated by the same kind of people all these years. And where are the gains? I want to know, where are our exports increasing? Please tell me. And, all these things that, Indian agriculture exports have increased, let me tell you, it's only beef exports that have increased for India, nothing else, because that's something we have got a surplus and we are pushing. The other part is when it comes to imports, when the import starts coming into India, you're actually going to hit the Make in India program, because once the cheaper imports come in, you will not be able to meet up with those challenges. Your Make in India is going to suffer. In fact, tell me one study in India which tells us what is going to be the impact of TFA on Indian economy. Nobody has done it. The point is that, we have a habit of supporting whatever is being done by the Western countries. And I think time to stand up and challenge, time to see through the design, and then see who gains out of it. I did a study on the first 10 years of WTO as far as agreement on agriculture is concerned. We presented that study at the Hong Kong Ministerial. You'll be surprised that the only gainers from the agreement on agriculture in the first 10 years of WTO were the European Union and America. 105 of the 149 third world countries had become food exporting countries. And that is what they wanted. So just imagine, the Doha development round completing, all countries, I'm sure, would be becoming food importing. If that is what our objective of the gains, quote unquote, then I think we are actually in for trouble or in for crisis in the days to come. So what I'm trying to say is that people people need to rationally, analyze the implication rather than going on singing the songs that West wants us to sing. So,
No, but
I think that is the bigger challenge.
No, Devinder, what are you trying to say? Are you trying to say that India could have kept out of the WTO, could have kept out of the TFA?
Said that. No, I never said that. From the very beginning, when we have stood up and said there was everything wrong going on in agriculture, we want the system to be right. Many people same argued with us. No, this will be bringing wonderful opportunities to us. We fought our way, we stood our way, and I think look at the agreement on agriculture is still not finalized globally, and that is where we have been able to protect our interest. Otherwise, we would have been by the kind of floods that would have come into India. The point I'm trying to make is, if market opening up that the West wanted was so good for us, we would have been doomed by now, or we have been flooded by now, or inundated by now by cheaper imports. So I think we fought for it that, we have to protect our interests, and that is what we are doing right now also when we say we need a peace clause to protect our food security.
Mr. Shankar, Devinder actually challenges your theory that it will help the Make in India campaign. He says that this will only lead to more imports, and that will only harm the Make in India.
I think there are two things. One is the issue of food security. Issue of food security, it is very clear that we have got a permanent peace clause, and we are very clear that as far as food security is concerned,
you don't agree with the other panelists that we will lose our leverage. We will not be able to work out the kind of agreement which we should.
I completely disagree, because I think if you could stand up to what we have stood up in the last 2-3 months, I don't see why our negotiators would not be able to get a mutually satisfactory agreement. Now, the agreement of the WTO outside agriculture, if we see, I think everybody would agree that India has gained. I mean, our productivity has gained, our investments have increased, our exports have increased. We run a trade surplus with the US in goods today. We run a trade surplus with the US in services today. If we look at the way modern jobs have come to India, the way Bangalore has grown. So it's not appropriate to not see the benefits that have flown to us. But we also have to see what we need to do internally to succeed.
Okay, quickly, both of you. Are you going to look at what the argument which Mr. Ajay Shankar is making, and that it can actually at the end of the day be beneficial if only your concerns about being able to stand up to these people is not there.
That's not what experience shows us. So, delinking the entire food issue from TFA also, it's so clear why are they so worried about wanting the TFA, because it benefits them much more than us. It's obvious logic that those who are export ready are the ones who are going to immediately benefit when TFA comes in. There will be small countries, and I think India should also think as a leader of the developing world, which is the role that India has played historically and which has stopped playing now. So if you look at other smaller countries, they have to start investing on their ports and making trade facilitation when they have many other things to invest in.
We have already started doing that, so
we have in any case doing it. TFA or no TFA, we are doing it in any case.
Yes, Chetan, quickly.
No, my concern over TFA is the farm sector. The Indian farm sector in the last few years has been fighting for survival. Whether TFA will help them or not is the big question I think the government should answer.
Okay, I think on that note we need to end the government will have to answer. There will be several questions which will be raised. But as of now, in fact, all the panelists agree that it has been a big step forward in getting this permanent peace clause. So we'll wait and watch how it will proceed further when the actual trade facilitation agreement is signed. What will happen, what will be the benefits, what will be the disadvantages, we'll wait and watch. Thanks to all my guests, Devinder Sharma, Ajay Shankar, Dipa and Chetan Chauhan. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue, big picture, same time tomorrow.